right, thank you for staying in Daybreak. Conversation on what the youth really want is continuing here with us. Eric Wanyama is here, youth officer wa Singishu County. Sasha Wamai, advocate of the High Court and MCA, nominated MCA. Ken Babu, youth leader DAPK. Kefa Ojijo, advocate and secretary general Roots Party. And Kasmuel Makoure, ODM Youth League. And Eric, I was coming to you on this conversation on what really should the young people do now, looking forward.
Thank you so much, Trevor. First, I want to be very specific and also categorical on what we are supposed to do. Yes, it has happened that we have a past right now as the young people of this country. In the recent past months, you've seen what has happened in this country. We have had a lot of demos and young people have been killed. We have lost so many young, vibrant and energetic leaders who are so promising because of the demonstrations. And I also want to say that like that is not enough. Now it has happened. What do we need to do in order for us to stay solid as young people? Today the youth form 60% of the population of this country. Look at the millennials, they are at 15%. Then the next is the Gen Zs, which form around 18 to 22 million in terms of statistics. Then what does it indicate as far as the politics of this country is concerned? We are going into an electioneering period. Then, because we have had demonstrations, we have expressed ourselves on the streets. Then, from a sobriety point of view, then I'll want to advise the youth and the young people, for those who have national IDs, wakate kura. For those who don't have national IDs, they should do so. Find ways in which they can, have themselves with their IDs, so that going into the future, we are going to form a voting bloc, and this voting bloc will not be assumed whatsoever. Every politician right now, in their own capacities, is trying to see how much they are going to convince the young people, because we are going to vote, we are going to form the largest voting bloc. After having said that, I want to say that there are myriads of problems and challenges that the young people are facing in this country. Look at unemployment. Today, only 1 out of 10 young men and women is employed. So what does it then mean? That unemployment is an issue that we need to discuss about. The young people want jobs. The young people don't want politics. Already we've had enough of politics. We have seen people go east, west, central, and talking politics, but we want jobs. Number 2, we want the systems of government to enable and allow young people to do business. We want entrepreneurship to come at the center of our discussion. We cannot talk politics from day one and politics up to day last. We need to be very strategic, employ strategy and stratagem to see how much we are going to empower ourselves as young people. Okay. And this is what I want to say. For instance, there are counties which are doing so well in terms of youth inclusivity and employment. Like, for instance, we have, Kirinyaga County, we have Uasin Gishu County, and we want people who talk about issues of the young people. Like, for instance, in Uasin Gishu County, we've seen the governor Koti Moja talk about nguzo 10, na baadhi ya nguzo 10 ambazo yeye mwenyewe anataka zitimizwe. One of them ni nguzo ya kwanza ni vijana. Vijana, the former deputy president said that the future of this country is on the shoulders of the young people. And that means, therefore, that, Trevor, as young people, we are supposed to be at the front line. When every discussion about us is called, then we need to be present. There is no one who has the capacity to speak about people calling themselves in the boardrooms, people age 50 and above, to discuss on matters of the youth, minus the youth. That is very unconstitutional. And the youth of this country also have not elected or voted for any other young person to represent them. We have seen what has happened, and we have seen a lot happening in terms of betrayal, political betrayal, business betrayal. People are following their own interest. And that is why even as I speak right now, there are people who have become the greatest and biggest beneficiaries of what happened a few months ago as far as the demonstrations are concerned. And today, we don't want to say that Flani is our leader, Flani is our leader. No, we want to say that we are going to be there so that we can be counted. And maybe before I finish on that, then what are we supposed to do as young people? And I want to predict it right from here, that in 2027 and most probably 2032, we are going to have so many young people coming to parliament, and from that time now, revolution will come. We shall cleanse the politics of this country and decide that this is the direction that we want to take. Lakini pia hizi stories za hyena and the hare of, the hare telling the hyena, bring our mothers, put them in the sacks, let us beat them and let us kill them because, they are the ones causing the problems that we are facing today. Then another person, that is the hare, goes around, puts the stone in the back, starts beating the bag, then the hyena beats the mother to death. And then the next day, the hare appears with the mother and says, what happened to your mother? The hyena is like, no, I killed her. Why? You said we kill our mothers. No, that is not where we want to go. We want people who are transparent. We want people who are very honest. We don't want selfishness and egocentrism amongst the young people, so that we can have a clear path under which we want to follow as young people. Just like I said.
Kefa, is what Eric talking about, is it really a reality? Young voting bloc? And are the young people the ones to cleanse the politics, or will they just still follow the same path that the forefathers have followed?
Trevor, Martin Luther King Jr. put it this way, that power does not change people. It reveals who they are. In fact, our own Professor Kothogendo makes it in a better way, that absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. 35 years ago, if you met William Ruto, who was selling chicken on the streets, and you probably told him he will behave this way, he would have slapped you in the face. When he was selling chicken 35 years ago. But now we see. Yesterday I heard him saying he has a PhD and he needs no one to advise him. Some of us do have them, but we all know monopoly on knowledge. You see, this attitude determines where and the pace at which we move as a nation. It is very sad because his children are probably our peers. His son was my classmate at the Kenya School of Law. There is nothing as painful as carrying the burden of a parent who failed to play his part. Because history is going to judge us someday. History will judge us. Today he's in power, but he has children that history will also judge someday. And when you're leading a nation, you cannot lead a nation as if you're leading your own house. You're leading other people's children as well. We must realize that this nation is given to us to do our part and pass it for posterity to equally do their part. He's on record saying he will become the president, whether we like it or not, in 2027. He will not. He himself told us systems do not work. They didn't work against, the system didn't favor Nyayo in 2002. It didn't favor Raila and Uhuru in last election. What makes him think he's going to favor him in 2027? When makers of the Constitution were drafting our Constitution, they knew the role of young people, and they took a whole Article 55, all of it, to talk about the youth, and highlighted 6 issues that the government must intentionally do for its young people. One of them is affirmative action for young people in politics, in education, in health and social status. That is what Article 55 talks about. Have you ever heard them talking about it? The only affirmative action here is it's about women. We even have seats preserved for women in elections as women rep. Why don't we have seats preserved for young people in elections? The deliberate efforts to transform young people and the gender start from the leadership. We say politics is about perception, but we also say politics is about leadership. If there is no goodwill from the president, which we have not seen, I have not seen. I have lived in this country now long enough to know what works and what does not work. But Ruto consistently convinces us, or try to convince us, that what does not work will work. Young people are helpless. We have tried means we can. We have demonstrations, we are on streets. I have spent the last 10 years representing young people on brutality, on equality, across all sectors in this country. Nothing is happening, you see. But we know what will happen. We have seen leaders like this come and go. We know how it starts and how it ends, and we can tell how his will equally end. But one thing is, young people will learn something. That we hold these offices for a period of time, and we release them to other people to continue the agenda for the betterness of this nation. We deserve better. We have not seen better.
Okay. Kasumel, is this young voting bloc a reality? And are the young people going to cleanse politics? Because I can see some barbs being thrown your way, that there are those who benefited from the whole Gen Z revolution.
It is true. I benefited from the Gen Z revolution. It is no secret. I came out alive. As a person whose life was attempted on by the government, the biggest benefit, the biggest privilege, and it is such a sad thing that I have to call it a privilege, is the fact that I came out of it alive. We are very, very smart people, and we can always find out things for ourselves and do an audit. I've always invited people that parade all the frontliners and auditors during that period. Then it will reveal the truth, because there are many people who made money from the protests. I can assure you I was not one of them. There are very many people, and we know them by name, who stole money that was meant even for mobilization when we would put together little resources. There's a lady who was insulting me in one of your shows here. Not yours technically, but it was like a Wednesday night show. She stole money that was meant for mobilization, and they've been doing activism. She spent her entire 20s doing activism. That's why when I hear people who've been doing this for a decade, I keep on wondering, when is enough going to be enough? How can you be doing this for 10 years and then you want to scapegoat a person who's been doing this? I've been doing it silently in my classrooms, but I've only shown up in the public limelight for close to a year now. We cannot be dishonest about our methods. We cannot be dishonest about the things that we are doing. And I keep on saying this because if we truly want to cleanse or drain the swamp, we will have to interrogate the leftist forces of this country, because corruption bedevils the left just as much as it bedevils the right. If you think I'm lying, go and sit down with these frontliners, and they must be honest with us. I don't think it's in my place to reveal this, but they must be honest with us about what happened in the 2022 elections. How much money they raised under the guise of wanting to change the country before their mother superior joined Azimio. They must explain what it is that happened. When people write grants for 8 million and they do concerts for 400,000 to try and deceive the people and shape public perception. When money is supposed to reach certain quarters to mobilize certain people, you decide not to give them money but give them t-shirts. The left is just as evil as the right. That is why I still believe the youth will liberate this country, but we will have to come honestly. We'll have to come and say this, and I remember one key question I used to ask the people we were with on the front lines. What is your selfish desire? Because none of those people were honest. Some of them just wanted to write grants, some of them just wanted funding for their growing companies, and this was a beautiful front. If you were to think about this thing, I'm one of the biggest losers. I've lost work. I have joined a party out of pure conviction. I do not have a post in that party. I do not have a post in government. At least some of these people asking me questions have posts in political parties. Mheshimiwa here earns a salary as a nominated MCA. Mheshimiwa Babu is also in a party that recently launched a headquarters in Karen. And I keep on saying, as long as this pretense is there, the old guard is trying to push us back to the tribal narrative, because you realize that we've managed to be split. How can you tell me that there are young men and women rallying behind Gachagua and they want a revolution? That they are saying we will take any sort of PR? That a former president can look at us and tell us about standing up for our rights and not having people loot our resources, as if the Kionjokoma twins did not die in his administration, as if we did not switch off our lights every Sunday at 9 p.m. in remembrance and in protest of a police brutality. We might not have come out of the streets then. I was still in campus back then. But by Jove, when we can change the country, let's change it. But let us not be dishonest in our means. If we are to dissect all these political voices, none of them has a spine. The only politician I've seen who has a spine, who stands truly for what they say, is my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. And that's why I rallied behind him. If that is a sin, then I'm willing, and I've said, I'm willing to pay the price of standing behind Raila Amolo Odinga. But we cannot be dishonest, because this is exactly how we shall be split. You cannot lie to me that ODM now is the devil's party. But you are allowed to be in Roots party, you are allowed to be in DAP, you are allowed to be in UDA. But somehow, we only want to relegate a certain caucus of the youth to particular endeavors, that these ones I believe that are just supposed to do demonstrations. If we are to shape it, and I still believe in my heart that as things stand right now, if we will have elections 2027, we shall control 85% of it.
Who's
but
we?
The youth. Yeah. We, the youth. We will decide.
But do you have a common cause? That's what I'm asking.
That's what I am saying. Until we unite around, and not a particular issue. Because the country has done this before. Kenya has consistently voted against a person, not for particular things. That's why, for example, you find it's hard to unite the panel, because we will agree that this is bad, for example. We will agree that the governance system of our country right now is not ideal. However, once we've sorted that out, we do not have an ideology. We are not like the people, our forefathers, who had Ujamaa, who had socialism. We've not found what that Kenyan dream for us is. And until we find it, it will be very hard to liberate, and we'll still find ourselves falling back to tribal cocoons.
Okay. Do the young people can have a common cause? This is the same question I keep asking a lot, because it's true, you can agree that there's some issues that need to be fixed. How to fix it is where the problem is. Do the young people have a common cause they're rallying behind, or will they still just be swayed by the political winds?
You know, Trevor, I think let me get it back to the time of Gen Z revolutions, and we didn't go to the streets because we knew each other. We went to the streets because we were pushed by certain agendas. And to date, some of them have not been addressed fully. We were talking about corruption, we're talking about extrajudicial killings, we're talking about bad governance. And most of these things have not been addressed. And things have not settled, guys are moving on, and things are moving on very well, according to them. But before I respond to that, I just want to tell my brother Kasmuel, he's been in this space, I've been in this space. And on that 25th June, we were there. But one thing I would like to tell him is that, you know, if you keep a snake as a pet, you must not be, you must not be so fast to forget that it is in the nature of snakes to bite. So it doesn't matter how long you're going to keep the snake. One day it will get triggered and it will bite you. This snake that my brother is viciously defending, this government, this Kenya Kwanza government, has done nothing for this country. And they are not planning to do anything, because they do not have any plan to do anything. They are focused on how they are going to retain power. We have failed systems everywhere. And my brother here can tell you that his former institution, the Technical University of Kenya, is collapsing, but he's not saying anything about it. It's a result of this failed system. So my brother, that snake will bite you. Don't keep it as a pet. Now let me get back to you. We have a common goal. We have a common goal. And we are so much committed to ensure that this country is saved from bad leadership, bad governance. And most of these things can only happen if you have proper people, honest and focused people in parliament. We all agree that the president has captured parliament. If President Ruto in 2027, maybe, and my brother said he will not secure a second time, and I can tell you that he's not going to secure a second term. But miraculously, if he gets a second term, he'll be one of the presidents with the less numbers of members of parliament. If you have a point where the president do not have, we have a proper parliament with people who are committed to transform this country. Like I saw my brother, Marvin. declaring himself, I mean, for the Kimilili member of parliament to replace that joke called Didmas Baraza. You see, if we replace people like that in parliament, and we have almost half of members of parliament determined, in fact, if you can get half of the Gen Zs who are on the streets, who knew what they were pushing for, good governance, corruption-free, you get that? Zero extrajudicial killings. We have such brains in Bunge. I'm telling you, we are going to push agendas that will transform this country. But again, I want to say that if Tom Mboya today would wake up, I know my brother Kasmul has been referred to as the Tom Mboya Jr. of that time when we were on the streets and he was doing his stuff. In fact, at one point we were on the same lane until the GSU decided to disperse us. But if Tom Mboya was to wake up today and realizes that this is the young man that has been referred to him Junior, I think he will die 10 times. He will die 10 times. Because Tom Mboya was eliminated because of the things he stood for. He never succumbed to any pressure. In this guise of, I believe in this person. This country has been through a lot of things. And we give it to Raila Odinga, like he mentioned. He's been at the center stage of pushing agendas. But again, we must agree as young people that we must put in new faces. We cannot say that the problems that were sorted in the 90s are the same. I mean, the strategies that were used in those times are the same strategies we are going to employ to transform this nation. If we are going into a dialogue conversation, and this now goes to the political party formation and the leaders, we want to see if Kasmul is an ODM, and ODM is saying that we are with the Gen Z, or we are with the young people. We want to see him put in a strategic position and make decisions. If my party, DAPK, or Wiper, or any other coalition that is being formed, is saying that we stand with the young people, we put the agenda of the Gen Zs, we want to see the faces of young people in those positions. And recently, when we were launching our party headquarters in Karen, and I said this, at the top, on the dais, we had Kalonzo Musyoka, we had Rigathi Gachagua, we had Onyonka, and we have my party leader, Eugene Wamalwa. And I said that in that structure, if they believe that they are talking about issues around young people and women, then we need to add 4 more seats on that dais. 2 for young people and 2 for the women. So that we don't be in a situation where people are just proclaiming and talking and there's no action. Okay. So going forward, these now political formations that are being formed and everything. If you are interested, and including the president, you are looking forward to work with the young people and say that this is the vote ballot that you are. I mean, amongst us here, we can decide and produce a presidential candidate. Maybe you can produce Sasha. Maybe you can produce SG here, a brilliant young man. And maybe you can produce my brother here, Kasmuel, for presidency as as a youth vote. Yeah. But if we are going to rally behind these old guys who have been in the place for the longest time, then we must see actionable points. Okay. You can't talk about young people when on the table they are nowhere to be seen. But it's the other flip side to that, and I'll bring in Sasha on this, is that the young people need to create their own spaces, because it seems it's been proven over time that they will not get those spaces unless, in fact, the adage is power is not given, it is grabbed. So how are the young people coalescing around themselves? Because there are 2 versions of this question that I'm asking you. That do the young people have a common cause? And if they don't, can they be given a common cause? And who will be the person to give them a common cause? Because it is true that in terms of population, the younger people are more. But how come they still keep electing the same leaders? So do they have a common cause? And what should be done so that they have a common cause if they don't? All right, Trevor, that's a very good concern or question. And one thing we need to agree is that young people need to move, to deviate from empty rhetorics. These are what has been driving the politics of this country over and over and over. And the casualties of empty promises and fulfilled manifestos are the young people, who are the majority in terms of population. Trevor, I believe that young people have a common goal. And young people have woken up from their slumber, and they have realized it's now time. The future that has always been promised for the young people to take over is now. And we saw that last year when the Gen Z
went, and you know, Gen Z was a composition of millennials and Gen Z, and most of the people who led the fight were millennials, because these are the people who are feeling the heat. These are the people with young children who cannot access, you know, they are unemployed, and their children cannot access decent education. These are the people, the young people with young children who cannot access proper health care. And so from that, you know, revolution, or that the demonstrations we saw and witnessed during the Gen Z protests, it showed that young people can assemble and come together for a common cause. And what we are doing right now, we have had so much on the streets. We have had fights all over through protests, but we have to change the tactic. We have to be very strategic. And how to be strategic, Trevor, is by ensuring that we institutionalize this fight against, you know, abuse to the Constitution, ignorance to the rule of law. And how we do that is by what we are doing. For instance, as lawyers, we have come together and formed a caucus, and we are going to educate our people. We will give and offer our time, our knowledge, because we are learned. Everybody seated here, you can feel, and you can even listen to the kind of arguments they are putting forward. It shows they are educated, they are exposed, they are following on what is happening in the nation. So how do we synergize all this, you know, and maybe create a change that will ensure that we sit in those positions? It is by coming together and institutionalizing this fight. Okay. For instance, if it is in the legal, like I am talking like that because I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And as lawyers, what can we do? Yeah. Lawyers are mandated to understand the law, to interpret the law to the people, and this can be done well on the, you know, civic education. And this is one of the things that we, the elite young people, or people, young people who have been exposed to education, proper education, we need to go back to our grassroots and educate on quality of leaders. Yeah. Because we will keep complaining, we will keep shouting, we will keep coming and attending such shows to just complain, to give our voices, to give our views, but nothing in real sense, in reality, will change. So we have, number one, to educate the voters, because that is where our problem starts. If we do not, if we vote on euphoria, on emotions, on who, you know, sometimes we go, you know, voters go to vote against somebody, not because the leader they want to vote in is capable or will represent them in the best way possible. It is now the time young people need to reinform what informs voting patterns in our country. Okay. Secondly, Trevor, the issues of abduction and arbitrary arrests, these have been a pain in the quote-unquote of young people. This is what has really, that is a common challenge that we are facing as young people, because the majority of the young, of the people abducted are young people. We are the youths suffer the most in terms of abduction, because mostly because of our vulnerability, our creativity. For instance, the youths who had been abducted because of drawing cartoons and using the digital platforms in manners that were seen to sort of create insult or, you know, anger the president. These are youths who are talented. Okay. These are youths who, if they use that, and we galvanize and maybe bring that, you know, information, bring those skills together, we are going, you know, to create change. We are going to make informative cartoons. Okay. We are going to make informative messaging, and we have, and before you know it, so we will have, civic education is one of the greatest
all right, Eric.
pillars that we need to embrace.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I don't wish to participate in politics of criticism, but however, it is important for me to stick to our objective that basically under the UN proposals, we have around 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And we want to narrow it down to our country. We have embraced the implementation of the of the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, then why do you have the Sustainable Development Goals? Who are they for? For instance, education, employment, fight against hunger and poverty. Why do we have such sustainable development goals? It is so that we can secure a future for the young people and for the generations to come. We cannot do that if, as young people, we are not united and are not speaking the same language. So politics of criticisms will come, politics of criticism will always be there. But this is what I want to say and concur with all the panelists who are here, that indeed we are in very difficult economic times. And not to defend anybody, but I want to say that there are so many people who are able politically in this country, and also we have political dwarfs, people who are in politics but they don't know why they are there, but they were carried there by political waves, and we have seen that happen in our parliament, that there is a lot of incompetence and so forth and so forth. And one of the people and the persons in this country who is not a political dwarf, someone who is so much informed and knows always what is going to do next and has got their own political cards, the best played last, is William Ruto. And I want to say this: if we have to come together and say that we want to stop the re-election of His Excellency the President, then truth be told, if we are going to continue with what we are doing around here, moving up and down without proper strategy and stratagem, we are going to be swept away again, because this is a president who is a street sweeper, who is a mobilizer, who is an orator, not forgetting that he has the capacity to pull people together. So if we must have another regime in place, then that means, therefore, that we are supposed to come together. Not saying that I'm wishing anybody bad luck, but not also saying that I don't wish that we step into political positions, but just to say that a time has come for us as young people to stop participating in politics of criticism and champion for progressive politics and a less retrogressive kind and setup of thinking, so that together we can, swim into a future that is desirable. Do we then embrace liberalism, whereby government does not dictate on how we do business, that government does not have to hike taxes? Then that is to say that on matters of youth and employment, there are so many today, and you can put it on record, that there are so many institutions, learning institutions, technical institutions, which government is launching day by day. But are we seeing a replica of the same when it comes to launching of industries in this country? There are so many learning institutions, yet there are very few industries. Then what does it mean? That are we really in a position to bridge the gap between the number of experts, the number of qualified individuals who the Kenyan market is producing against the rate at which we are supposed to be absorbed? So we have so many people who have graduated from, back even from 2000 up to date. People have never gotten a job, yet they live in this country. Yeah. Yet institutions continue to be launched each and every day. Then what I want to recommend and say is that as a country, it is high time also that we invest in industrialization. We want to see government launch industries, implement ideas and ideologies that are going to push the agenda of development forward, rather than participating in politics of criticisms from evening and to down, and from morning to evening, for the better interest of the few who are not the majority. Okay. We know for sure that politics is a game of numbers. And the youth don't seem to, they want to foster change, they just don't know how. What will it take? Will it take them rallying behind one of their own, or how will this change come? How do they foster change?
Trevor, it starts with us. Even as we sit here, I've heard my colleagues here articulate their issues, but it even has to start with us where we are seated here. We must learn to do things differently. Young people must be taught to understand that it is okay to disagree. It is okay to start learning things that are uncomfortable around you. My younger brother here has decided to join a party that he feels is, works in his favor and has value than it. That is right. That is his opinion. That is his stand. Why would that make me feel a way like now he's not doing the right thing? You see, we need to create a culture where young people are free to live. He's a human being. He has his wishes. He has his freedom. I don't think there is no obligation that he was to lead a certain generation or do things this way. You see, we must start learning to, be comfortable with different ideas and learning that it is not always as we want it. People also have their ways. See, that's having said that, allow me to say this, Trevor. Young people are not asking for much. I know the government cannot solve all our problems, but that it must do is that which we cannot do for ourselves. Protect us from harm. Don't abduct us. Provide us with a functional health system. Give us a working education. Allow our business to thrive by cutting down on taxes. These are things we cannot do for ourselves, but these are things that government must do for its citizens. Young people are only asking for the basic of any sensible government. And I think that is where it starts from. The government ought to have a conversation with young people. Not conversation to overpromise, not conversation of PR, a conversation of genuine issues and how to address these issues. I remember during the Gen Z demonstrations, there are a number of issues which were raised to the president. And he said he was going to provide a framework on how to handle these issues. Up to now, we are still waiting to see those framework on how to handle those issues. You see, you may campaign by using a PR, but you cannot lead by using PR as well. You're leading real people who sees what is happening in your country. The least you can do is act of good faith. If you look at developed nations, take United States for instance, the government does not only survive on its political, structures and will, but it invites every person, every business people, every young people. J.D. Vance, the vice president, is barely 40 years right now as we speak. Elon Musk has been brought in now to drive the economic transformation of the United States. It is not just you need to capture the brains of people who has something that they can offer in that government. It is not just us. See serikali ya shares, now we're just here, it's us, and we're just stuck on that.
Yeah.
William Ruto should just step back and ask himself, where did we miss it? And how can we fix it going forward? Young people feel left out so much. If you look at the appointments happening, you don't see the face of young people. If you look at an opportunity being provided in the government, you don't see the face of young people. These young people, some of them are, PhD holders. They are barely surviving on the street, not because they don't have education, but because the system does not provide an, enabling environment for them to thrive. That is all they want. We don't want to be in the government. You can keep it. Just provide for us the opportunity so that we can provide meal for our families. We can live a decent life every day. We cannot live in a country where we are being punished for being citizens in that country.
Okay. Kasmur, how do you collate towards a foster change going forward?
I think we just have to consistently find what the common ideology is going to be. And this is where now we'll want to exist. Yes, I think it can exist. It takes a bit of work. It takes deep introspection in asking ourselves what are the core values of us as a country, and then we can coalesce around those. Because right now, if you see, the youth have already been locked out of the national conversation. Right now, nobody is talking about the youth in their political arithmetic. They are only looking at us as a basket which they will come and try to scatter votes from. And we're telling them that just the same way they keep on saying, 2027 is still too far. Let nothing lie to you that we will disagree forever. Right now, this is the period of sharpening contradictions. It is a period of me understanding why are my fellow youth mad at me for joining ODM, and they're not mad at any of these people for being in those other political parties. Because when we said we were tribeless, we had realized that tribes had been used to divide us. When we said we were partyless, it's because the parties that were currently instituted in place were not championing for our rights as we had them. When we said we were leaderless, we did not want the narrative of our revolution to be centered around a particular individual. However, the country went as it did. And now it is rather shameful, and I would like to politely call out even my brother Ken Babu's party, that he has been toiling very hard for that party. If it were not for him, I would not know about that party. Because his party leader, if you are not being waziri and following a president around, we would not know who Eugene was. If it were not for Kalonzo's shuttle diplomacy and him kupita katikati ya watu and riding on the coattails of the same party leader who you want to crucify me for going to, we would not know who these people were. And they have been in government and they've not been able to achieve the change. As young people right now, we are just sharpening our contradictions. And if we are not at the table as equal participants, because what these people have decided to do, now they're fronting the same people who killed us. Same people who said that going to the streets to demonstrate against high cost of living. Now he's pretending he's the saint of the cost of living. While he said he's now trying to be an activist against people withdrawing security from public officials. That's the exact same thing he did while he was in office. We must, and this is why I keep on saying, we will find that common agenda. But that common agenda cannot be an individual. It cannot be us just voting, because we've done it against presidents past. People voted against Moi. Within the first 2 years of Kibaki's reign, did we not have the same agitation? Both of his reigns, both after 2002 and 2007, which he stole as an election. Then came Uhuru. Then came Ruto. And then all of them now suddenly want to act as saints. It is very possible. And as a youth, I don't think anybody else can do this for us. We still must find ways to disagree and be comfortable in the discomfort. Yeah. We still have to find ways to coalesce around the particular agenda that is Kenya and that is our future, because we are its custodians. And now find ways to build key strategic partnerships with the current stakeholders for us to find ways to bring about this systemic change that we seek. Even Mandela had to work with F.W. de Klerk. De Klerk killed, he was responsible for apartheid. We must, as young people, find our key strengths. If my key strength is pushing a wheelbarrow, I must push it as though nobody else. If it is articulating issues, I must articulate them as clearly and as truthfully as I possibly can. If it is mobilization, as I know some of these people on this panel are, we must mobilize with the cause that is Kenya. But our material conditions are still beholding us. Our search for fame is still beholding us. The blue check, which is the biggest devil against, the biggest impediment against our revolution, is still holding us back. So we would rather trade jobs. For example, if I come to this interview, the only highlight will be that I will have the only way it does well is if I heckle Ken Babu or if I heckle Mheshimiwa whenever they call my name, or if they heckle me. So we've just been reduced to dramatic characters who can heckle the other the loudest. And that's why now I said I will not heckle anyone, because I also need to understand if there is a rift between me and Mheshimiwa, who's a fellow young person, how can we bridge that divide?
Yeah.
Yes.
But then can you do that in current existing parties, or should you, as young people, have formed your own political?
It is possible to do it with a blended approach.
Because we must by saying that you're partyless and then you join the party. You started by saying that you're leaderless and then you have a leader now.
Yes. Now for me, and this I will speak because there's a role of the individual and there's a role of the collective. When we were saying we were partyless, for example, I'll take the example of the party.
Yeah.
We said this is not a political movement. But if we are a democracy, remember, Inject is not the only party that was born out of this thing that came after our revolution. There are some young people who at some time around August tried to form a party. They wanted to form a youth party, and we shut them down. We told them there's nothing that they're doing, and we drove some of them outside the revolution, and we told them to go back to being influencers. If we are truly a democratic space, what should have happened? We should have allowed them to form it. Then I would have formed mine and said, now let us battle it out from the people. Tell the people this is what we stand for. But merely just standing against the establishment, because my political party is the best organized party in the country. It is the largest, best organized party. I want to be in an organized system. The only reason these people are still in these political parties is there's something they see in that party that they resonate with deeply. But who's to say that we cannot walk out as young people and form a thing that is pro-people, pro-youth? As I see it now, I do not want to live in an isolated Kenya. I do not want to live in a Kenya whose sole agenda is the youth. I want that to be part of the agenda, but I want the family fabric to still remain intact. I want to remain in a country which works for both the young, the old, the able and the differently abled, male, female. I want the whole country to work. Youth is not a qualification for leadership. Youth is not an agenda. It is an existence. It's the same way I will not reward you for being a man. You did not get your job because you're a man. It's because of the excellence that you, and that's what we are hoping for. We're hoping for a meritocracy. Seeing a world where I can work with my party leader, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and work with Trufena, who was hugging a tree and broke the world record, and talking about even the youth agenda. What are some of these ministries doing? 2 Guinness World Records were broken in Kenya, and nobody is talking about it. We just want to care about politics. And part of what Kenya Kwanza's pillars were in the youth and the creative economy. My brother Makinle Mutsembi he played the trumpet for 26 hours, 40 minutes. Nobody was talking about that. There's a girl who hugged a tree, who broke the world record for hugging a tree for the longest, for climate change. Nobody is talking about those things. So if we, while existing in our normal day-to-day lives, will not be awarded, then we shall have to play this game that we see as it is being played. And we're urging all youths, if you're out there, join a party or form a party. We must be equal participants in the politics of this country.
All right, I have to take some quick feedback, then I'll come to all of you to get closing remarks because we're running out of time here. Let's bring up the feedback and see what you're saying. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya used the hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring that up right now and see what you're saying online. The question is, what do the youth really want? Can they rally behind a common cause? Do they have a common cause? And how does that play out going forward? But before we get into the feedback, Ken, let's come to you and just hear what your thoughts are in this. As we are closing this discussion now, so what then is the way forward? What do you recommend going forward?
I think the way forward, the best way forward for the young Kenyans and my colleague youths is to, number one, we have to be engaged politically. It is high time that we get involved in the political process. And it should be as aggressive as possible. Join a political party, seek positions, ask questions, ensure you are engaged. You know, Trevor, for the longest time, we've been just around. You know, people say that I'm just around. You know, I'm serving as the youth chair. But at some points, when opportunity comes that only demands that I provide young people who are members of my political party, and I have friends who are not members of my political party, and they're not in any party. So they tend to ask me, bro, why are you not fixing us? These things are coming and you're just giving them. And I ask them, are you a member of my party? So I no. Are you in any political party? So no. So what I can say, what I'll suggest is the young people must join political parties, number one. Number two, we must also ensure that we have voters card. It doesn't matter what we are going to say, what we are going to do. The real thing happens at the ballot. The real change happens at the ballot. If it doesn't matter how much you are going to walk around and come to these shows and shout and scold those who are in the regime, if we don't have an ID and a registered voter, we will just do all that, but at the end of the day, we will make the status quo. So we get engaged in the political process, we join parties, we participate, and we seek our opportunities. And then, like you mentioned, yes, youth is something that is passing by, but while you are still there, ensure that you are doing something that when you exit, people will keep mentioning you. Today we talk about people like Piogama, Pinto, Tom Mboya, because the things they did while they were young at that time. You get that? If they did nothing, maybe you could just be talking about how they were killed. You get that? But you talk about, when you mention Kotu or trade unionist, you must refer to Tom Mboya, because that's an agenda that he pushed as a young person. Mm-hmm. So what I will advise all of us here and any other young person outside there, let's identify an agenda. Okay. And push it, and ensure that we are engaged in this political process. Okay. This is where we have always been duped. We stay back, and the decisions are made. Yeah. We stay back, and things are just moving. So jump into the fray. Jump into the field.
Because there's some young people who have heard before saying that I won't vote because it doesn't matter.
Now, me, I've always believed, and I keep telling young people, jump into the field and fight everybody who is there, so that that space can be clean and organized, and then people can now talk.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Sasha, way forward.
One thing as young people, we need to deal with the political marginalization that we experience. And I want to agree with my fellow, the views of my fellow panelists, because being a youth is not a career, that's what we say. Being a youth is just a stage of life. And as every young person, at some point, we will grow old. But what are we doing with this capacity we have as young people? Remember, the political systems in Kenya work through parties. And the biggest agenda for the young people from the old guards, let me call them old guards in the political parties, because old guards, because these are the people who control. We have zero decision making in most of the time, because we do not have this financial muscles to sit in these parties. So kazi yetu ni kupangwa, and for the longest time, youths have been on the sidelines. They are only involved when there is mobilization. They are only involved when Gunism is needed. They are only involved when the agenda, you know, to push a certain agenda. Like now, if we start talking as young people, you shall see parties fronting young people to talk about youth unemployment, the abductions, like the way they rode with the Gen Z protests. It is the old people who benefited. Yeah. Well else, it is the young people who were killed. So how do we deal with this marginalization? Number one, as Ken Babu has said, let us register as voters. This voter apathy that, the youths bring that voter apathy because they don't feel the need, and especially professional youths. I'm calling upon any profession, any professional, feel that it is your responsibility to fit in the shoes of shaping the politics of this country, because we have like 75% of the population in this country, but some of them are at the back seats because they are professionals. They don't want to be entangled with the political dirt. But it is high time we realize it's not political dirt. We cannot leave the fight to a few young people. We have to bring our synergy together. We have to work together and change the systems, the political systems that bring, the existence of power. If we want to be part of the government, let us be on the table. Because we say if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. Okay. And most times we are always on the menu. Right. Let us ensure that we are on the table making those decisions. Let us improve our negotiation capacities, and let us educate on quality leadership. That one I will keep on insisting. All right. And adapt the institutionalization of, fights in terms of, let us be more strategic on our fights, so that we can achieve something sustainable. All right, Eric, way forward.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I want to say that we look at ANC of the South, the Communist Party of China, the Republicans of the US, and also the Democrats. These parties have been able to produce presidents for the longest time, yet they still exist. What is it that they have been able to do for them to continue to be in existence even after producing presidents? Unlike in this country, whereby a political party is done and doomed immediately, they produce a president. Look at TNA, look at Jubilee, where are they? Look at NAC, look at PNU. Once they produced the presidents, they are now not in proper conditions and setups. That is why we are saying, as young people, it is important for us to think in a futuristic perspective. I like saying that, flies are buried in the grave because they lack someone to remind them that the coffin shall be closed. So unlike the flies, as young people, we have got the opportunity to be reminded that whatever is happening in this country in regard to the political spheres and paraphernalias, one day, as she has put it, that we are on the menu. And that means that we stand very few chances. But this is what I want to say, that we have a solution. We have, as young people, to come together and resonate together on matters, politics. And that's why we are saying we need a political party that is futuristic, a political party that embraces young leaders. And that's why we are saying most probably in the near future, we are going to have a political party that will embrace the ideologies and the ideas of the young people across the country, and also inclusively the women, and everybody will come on board. Perhaps the future party. Thank you so much.
All right. Kefa, way forward.
Trevor, number one, young people must learn that no one is coming to save them. The era of Jesus Christ and the Israelites is long gone. You are on your own as a young person. You're on your own. Number two, and most importantly, young people must be taught that you don't have to be a politician or have a political seat to make a difference. Young people can make a difference in any way in their community, where they work. They can make a big difference and influence so many people. In fact, if you look at most developed nations, the poorest are politicians. Politicians are the poorest. They do not make any change on the community and economic influence. Young people can drive this. Number 3, and most importantly, young people must have a reason or a firm belief on something to die for. There must be something you stand for. There must be something you're fighting for. Every young person must have a reason why they want to live in this country. They must have a reason why they want to wake up every early in the morning and make their life, a better life as they grow old in this country. There must be something we must be waking up for and dying for. Whether it's a political ideology, whether it's a change for a regime, whether it's that quest to have, political opportunities for young people, we must fight for at least something in our life every day. If young people have this routine of knowing that they stand for something, of knowing that they do not need that political seat to make a difference, of knowing that nobody is coming to save them, we will not be sitting here and talking about how to help young people.
Okay. Kasmwa, way forward.
If you're a young person listening to the sound of my voice, from the tea farms in Shinyalu to the hills of Shimba, from the sandy beaches of Lamu and to the basket weavers of Lodwar, I shall be very pragmatic with you. The change we are seeking in this country will be found in the Orange Democratic Movement. And if it changes, I shall let you know. If it changes, if the Orange Democratic Movement stops representing the voice of the people, we shall mass exit. But as it stands, it is the only current progressive pro-people party. We must unite behind a particular ideology. If our only agenda is removing William Ruto from the presidency, we shall surely fail. If our only agenda is removing old people from politics, we shall surely fail. If our only agenda is replacing one politician with the other because this one looks fairer skinned than the other, because this one speaks better English than the other, we shall surely fail. However, if we are interested in true systemic change, we shall surely win. If we are truly interested in a system that gives us good governance, cracks the war on corruption, gives us accountability in government, and for once and for all does away with extrajudicial killing, we cannot fail, we shall surely win. If we are truly interested in a Kenya that gives us a present and a future and are willing to work with all the key stakeholders involved, we shall surely win. I am here to remind you that our Constitution, in its first chapter, says that all sovereign power lies with us, the people, and shall be exercised directly or indirectly. And we cannot and shall not fail, because we, the people, shall, only if we unite behind an ideology and not behind issues. It is okay for us to have contradictions. It is okay for us to disagree. But by Jove, let us not delay the liberation of our country. By Jove, let us not let our short-term goals impede our more strategic goals for a better Kenya. And by Jove, let us create a space where all of us can exist peacefully for the sake of our nation.
All right, thank you very much. Let's bring up some of the feedback that you're saying here as we close on this conversation. Let's bring up the feedback really quick and see what you're saying. Kiprop Kenya says it's time we move the talk from social media and start having practical conversations on where we want to take our country. Okay? See what else you're saying here. Engineer Lazaro says youth don't have a common goal. They can't be deceiving people to blindly follow their revolutionary topics when in real sense still championing hidden agendas of some faceless tribal cocoons. Hey, okay? See what else you're saying here. Maganga Mustaf says the Gen Zs are occupying a significant space in the political arena by aligning themselves to political parties. Political parties are governments in waiting, and getting your space propagates chances of being part of the table and not the menu. Okay? Sawe says politics is a game of interest and perception. When leaders lack the goodwill to transform a nation, the dream of a Singapore remains just that, a dream. And when the youth betray those who truly yearn for change, progress remains a distant illusion. Okay. Sir Nixon says, dear leaders, kindly understand that our youth need morally upright models, not full-time critics. The youth is the hope of our future. To the youth, please keep in mind that good habits formed at youth make all the difference. Okay? Samuel says the younger generation born after .com wants nothing to do with military, family, religion, working 9 to 5, marriage, monogamy, or accountability. And this is going to be a huge problem for them in about 7 years. I wonder why just 7 years. Bob Jamwa, help us know the truth. That's your Twitter handle, Kasmo?
No. Oh, yeah, that's me. Yes.
Has admitted that some benefited from the cash meant for mobilization, while we thought the mobilization was through social media. Are there hidden forces behind the youth? You can answer that directly.
Yeah, there was some hidden, most definitely there were some hidden forces behind some of the youth.
J. Musoma says, ask Kasmuel if he will support Ruto if Raila endorses him for re-election.
I will support William Ruto if he delivers on his big pillars. And who says that Raila has declared he will support him during his re-election? I will support William Ruto if he suddenly has a change of heart that becomes pro-people.
Okay.
Yes, if he aligns with the ideals that we have in the Orange Democratic Movement and aligns himself to the highest possible standards for the people, then most definitely I will.
Okay. So there was a question about whether there were hidden agendas behind it.
There most definitely were hidden agendas, because we have to be absolutely honest. There are people who are on the streets. Most of the youth who are on the streets, the children of the working poor, went there for the quest of a better Kenya. But remember, we also have career activists in this movement. So my work was to read press statements while people are gathering in private clubs to propagate certain agenda. I've sat with them. I'm not saying that I was far removed from them, but I saw the guys, and that's why I'm saying, I kept on asking them, you cannot have been an activist for 10 years, and all that you have managed to bring to the country is grants to line your pockets and buy cars and buy hidden properties somewhere. And this is the thing which I keep on saying. Until we come and say these are our honest desires, we are human and these are the things which we are doing, we cannot achieve that change. Some of the greatest impediments are the country's left forces. And until we can address those leftist forces, we will still find ourselves in this mire. Because remember, some of them who are chanting down with this current administration signed an MOU with this administration. Some of its biggest critics, they have an MOU on paper. The snake oil salesman from Amunyoro keeps on telling us, oh, they went into this blindly. But if it were not for him and his mobilization, we would not find ourselves here. With regards to mobilization and the youth, there definitely was that. And that's why I said, after 8th of August, after there was 5 attempts of me, and people keep on laughing at me for jumping into National Media Center, I remember saying, there will be no demonstrations that I will participate in or lead. And it has stopped. And I say this because we cannot keep on leading the children of the working poor to their untimely deaths. If I went to the streets now, I will not get shot. But my Rastafari friend will get shot. We cannot keep on sending the children of the working poor to the streets only to lose their lives, for us to send their parents 10,000, drape their bodies with a flag and shout "Viva, Viva," and still say that we are part of the revolution. If that is our only strategy, we are nothing but part of the problem. And we must be careful. In fighting this monster, we do not end up turning into the very beast that we are trying to fight.
Did you receive some money yourself?
I personally did not. And I keep on saying, that's why I keep on daring everyone, because we know everything. I dare all of us to get audited.
And Trevor, it is also very interesting that while we were demonstrations were going on, at some point we thought that these reports that the NIS and the intelligence department was giving, that people are being funded and there is lump sum, huge amounts of money that was coming in to support this. At some point, we could rubbish the reports, but I thank God because, Kasmuel is confirming that indeed there was a lot of money to facilitate the same process of demonstration.
And this is not to sow...
That is
this is not to sow any division within the movement. This is just for us to understand that we must come with clean hands. If I were to give an example, if you receive 8 million, and you've said that you want to do mobilization with it, how do you take 400,000 to go and divide a particular, you put up a small concert or a small thing where people come and chant within the confines of a room? How do you take that money and take it to the poor people who've not seen a lump sum amount of money? You take it to one social justice center, for example, and give it there so that you know it is going to cause monetary division. A lot of them will show up with reports trying to say, oh, he has now been sent by government, but also you be keen. I want you to audit these groups, these movements that I've been saying for the change. I went to Mathare. One of the most heartbreaking things is we went to do an interview, and I was doing a campaign called Base to Base, where we would go to where the youth wana chana jaba and wana medi, and we would sit there and talk and ask questions. A child said, ndio hao watu wa TV wamerudi tena. This is the reality of a child in Mathare. Consistently, people use them as a backdrop for their grant applications. And we have to explore the role of the civil societies. Very few of them are actually doing the work. Because you find some of the frontliners who are keeping on saying, I sold out. They were in vacation. Some of them went to Venezuela. Who pays for that if you have a political party that receives 12,000? If you have a social justice center that's failing, who's financing your trips to South Africa and to the Americas? Who's financing your trips to the Brazil? We have to be entirely honest. Okay. And I will not be a part of that movement. So if you want to castigate me now, ask me questions in context with the ODM Youth League. I shall answer those questions.
Who are the donors of this party? Because this is very interesting. I'm curious now.
No.
To spill the beans.
Yes, who are the donors
now I am inviting people to audit all the frontliners and audit me as well. I want to be audited as well.
We need more information.
Thank you so much. Kasmel Makoure, ODM Youth Leader, asante sana. Ken Babu, Youth Leader, DAPK. Eric Wanyama, Youth Officer wa Singishu County, and Sasha Wamai, Mheshimiwa MCA nominated and advocate of the High Court. There's a bit of a concern with your role, Kefa. You told us you're the Secretary General for Roots Party. They're saying you're not. It's Adam Kadanani. Yeah, so this is something we have to rectify on air. So we will only introduce Kefa Ojijo as an advocate of the High Court. The Roots Party, the Roots Secretary General is Adam Kadanani. All right, bye for now.